Welcome to QuickSpeak, the English podcast for learners. Today we're going to be talking about relationships and communication. Have you ever wondered how understanding the way you and your partner communicate can lead to a stronger and happier relationship? We're about to find out.
It's incredible how much we communicate without even realizing it. It's not just about the words we say, but also about how we say them and all those little nonverbal cues we send each other.
So true. And sometimes those unspoken messages can speak volumes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
One concept that I find fascinating is the idea of love languages. It suggests that we all have different ways of feeling loved and appreciated.
What's fascinating about love languages is that they can be completely different for you and your partner. If you're not speaking the same language, so to speak, your efforts to show love might not be received in the way you intended.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you give us an example of how this might play out in a real relationship?
Imagine a couple where one person values acts of service as their primary love language, while the other prioritizes words of affirmation. The person who loves acts of service might feel most loved when their partner helps with chores or does something practical to make their life easier. They might express their love by doing things for their partner, like making them breakfast in bed or fixing something around the house.
But their partner might be left feeling a bit unfulfilled if they crave those verbal expressions of love and appreciation.
Exactly. In this scenario, the partner who values words of affirmation might long to hear compliments, words of encouragement, or simply those I love yous sprinkled throughout the day.
So even though both partners are expressing love in their own way, those expressions might miss the mark if they don't align with their partner's love language.
That's precisely the point. It highlights the importance of understanding not only your own love language, but also your partner's. Once you recognize those differences, you can start to tailor your expressions of love in ways that resonate with them on a deeper level.
It's like learning a secret code to unlock a whole new level of connection. Thinking about those differences in communication styles has got me wondering about another aspect of relationships. What about those subtle attempts we make to connect with our partner throughout the day? Those little bids for attention and affirmation.
You're talking about emotional bids. Those often overlooked but incredibly important interactions that can make or break a relationship. They're like little love taps throughout the day.
Can you give us some specific examples of what these emotional bids might look like?
They can be as simple as a smile when your partner walks in the room, or sharing a funny observation about something you saw on the way home. Even a quick text to say you're thinking of them. It's all about extending those little invitations for connection throughout the day.
And how we respond to those bids can have a significant impact on the relationship. Have you ever felt deflated when your partner seemed to brush off one of your attempts to connect?
Think about a time when you were excited to share something with your partner. Maybe you discovered a new song you thought they'd love, or had a funny anecdote from your day. How did you feel when they barely looked up from their phone, or gave you a distracted, uh-huh?
It's like your attempt to connect just bounced off them, leaving you feeling unseen and unheard. And those seemingly small moments, repeated over time, can slowly chip away at the foundation of a relationship. On the flip side, when we consistently turn towards our partner's bids for connection, we're essentially saying, I see you, I hear you, and I care about what you're sharing. That makes me think about all the different ways we can either turn towards away from or even against those bids. It's almost like a dance, isn't it? We're constantly sending out these subtle cues and responding to each other's attempts to connect. What are your thoughts on this? Share your own experiences and reflections with us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Building on that idea of connection. Sometimes it's not just about what our partners are saying, but also what they're not saying. What about those unspoken needs that can often lead to misunderstandings and frustration?
I think we've all been there. Sometimes it feels like we're talking past each other, and we're not quite getting to the heart of the matter.
Let's say your partner comes home from work and immediately starts complaining about a messy kitchen. On the surface, it might seem like they're just bothered by the clutter. But what if underneath that complaint is a deeper need for feeling respected and considered within the shared space?
So it's not just about the dishes. It's about feeling valued and appreciated.
Exactly. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. There's often a deeper meaning hidden beneath those surface-level complaints. But how do we get better at recognizing those unspoken needs?
I'm all ears. I know I could definitely use some tips in this department.
Well, active listening is key. Instead of just waiting for your turn to speak, try to truly understand where your partner is coming from. Pay attention not only to their words, but also their tone of voice and body language.
It's like we talked about earlier with emotional bids. It's about tuning in to those subtle cues and being present in the moment.
And when you sense there might be something more beneath the surface, don't be afraid to ask open-ended questions. Instead of saying, "What's wrong?" try something like, "What's making you feel this way?" Or, "Help me understand what's going on for you right now."
It's about creating a safe space for your partner to open up and share what's really going on inside.
It's like you're inviting them to share their inner world with you without judgment or interruption. Sometimes just feeling heard and understood can be more valuable than any solution we could offer.
It's amazing how those simple shifts in communication can make such a big difference. But even when we're actively listening and trying to understand each other's needs, disagreements are bound to happen. It's just a natural part of being in a relationship with another human being, right?
Absolutely. And it's not about avoiding conflict altogether, but about learning how to navigate it in a way that brings you closer together rather than driving you apart. Think of it like this. Even the most skilled dancers occasionally step on each other's toes. It's not about never making mistakes, but about how you recover and move forward together.
I love that analogy.
Mhm.
So how do we become better dancers, so to speak? How can we handle disagreements in a way that strengthens the relationship instead of weakening it?
One of the most important things to remember is that you're on the same team. You and your partner are not adversaries. Your partner's working together to find a solution that works for both of you.
That's easier said than done when you're in the heat of the moment, though. Emotions can run high,
Hmm.
and it's easy to get caught up in proving our point or defending our position.
That's where self-awareness comes in. If you feel yourself getting overwhelmed or defensive, it's okay to take a step back and say, "I need a few minutes to calm down before we continue this conversation."
It's like hitting the pause button so you can both gather your thoughts and approach the situation with a clearer head.
Exactly. And once you've both had a chance to cool down, it's important to approach the conversation with a willingness to listen and understand your partner's perspective. Remember, there are always multiple sides to every story, even if you don't agree with their viewpoint. You can at least make an effort to see things from their side.
Have you ever noticed that sometimes just feeling heard and understood can be enough to de-escalate a situation? It's like that validation helps us to feel safe and secure enough to let go of the need to be right.
And when it's your turn to express your perspective, remember to use those I statements we talked about earlier, for example. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," try something like, "I feel unheard when I'm trying to share something important." It helps to shift the focus from blame to your own feelings and needs.
It's like speaking from a place of vulnerability rather than attack. And it invites your partner to respond with empathy rather than defensiveness.
Exactly. It's about creating a dialogue rather than a debate. And remember, compromise is key. In any disagreement, it's unlikely that either person will get everything they want. The goal is to find a solution that meets both of your needs as best as possible.
It's about finding that middle ground, that win-win situation.
Right. And even if you can't reach a complete agreement, it's important to acknowledge and validate your partner's feelings. Saying something like, "I understand why you feel that way," can go a long way in creating a sense of understanding and connection, even amidst a disagreement.
It's about choosing connection over being right, and sometimes that's the most important choice we can make in a relationship. But before we move on to our final thoughts for today, I wanted to circle back to something we touched on earlier. We talked about how love languages can affect the way we express and receive love. But how can we apply that knowledge to improve our communication, especially during those challenging moments?
It's about remembering that your partner might be experiencing the situation through a completely different lens, based on their unique love language. For example, if your partner values quality time, they might feel particularly hurt or neglected during a disagreement if they perceive you as being emotionally unavailable or withdrawn.
So even if you're not intending to send that message,
Yeah.
your actions might be interpreted differently based on their love language.
Exactly. And if their love language is physical touch, they might find comfort and reassurance in a hug or a gentle touch, even during a heated moment. It's about recognizing that even during disagreements, we can still speak each other's love languages and create moments of connection.
It's like a reminder that even when we're disagreeing, we still love each other. And sometimes that's the most important message we can convey. It's like those little acts of love can be a bridge back to each other, even when we feel like we're drifting apart. Thinking back on everything we've discussed today, it's clear that communication is at the heart of any healthy relationship.
I think what's really important to remember is that communication is an ongoing process. It's not something you figure out once and then you're good to go. It requires ongoing effort, intentionality, and a willingness to adapt and grow alongside your partner.
So true. It's like tending a garden. It requires constant care and attention to thrive. But even with the best of intentions, we're all human, and we're bound to make mistakes. Do you have any advice for navigating those moments when we might slip up or say something we regret?
First and foremost, don't be afraid to apologize. We all mess up from time to time. Owning our mistakes and expressing sincere remorse can go a long way in repairing any damage that might have been done.
And sometimes an apology isn't enough. We might need to go a step further and make amends for our actions.
Right. If you've hurt your partner's feelings, think about how you can repair the rupture. Maybe it's through a heartfelt conversation, a thoughtful gesture, or simply making a conscious effort to be more mindful of their needs in the future.
I think it's also important to remember that forgiveness is a two-way street. Just as we need to be willing to apologize and make amends for our own mistakes, we also need to be open to forgiving our partners when they slip up.
Absolutely. Holding on to grudges or resentment only creates more distance and negativity in the relationship. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning hurtful behavior, but it does mean choosing to let go of the anger and pain so you can move forward together.
It's about recognizing that we're all imperfect beings,
Mm.
and we're all learning and growing along the way. And sometimes those moments of conflict can actually be opportunities for growth.
What's fascinating is that conflict, when handled constructively, can actually bring you closer together. It's a chance to learn more about each other's needs, fears, and desires. It's an opportunity to strengthen your communication skills and deepen your understanding of each other.
I think that's such a beautiful way to reframe the way we view conflict. Instead of seeing it as a negative thing, we can choose to see it as a chance to deepen our connection and build a more resilient relationship.
And remember, seeking support when you need it is a sign of strength, not weakness. If you're finding it difficult to navigate communication challenges on your own, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist for guidance.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Communication is the lifeblood of any relationship, and it's something we can always continue to learn and grow in.
Absolutely. And even small changes in the way we communicate can have a ripple effect, creating positive changes in our relationships and in our lives as a whole.
That's it for today's episode of QuickSpeak. We hope you found this discussion helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English learning tips and interesting conversations. And be sure to let us know in the comments what resonated with you the most today. We'll see you next time.